The gunshot that rang through the dusty street of Eureka Springs, Arkansas on that scorching August afternoon in 1877 was not from an outlaw's pistol, but from the rifle of 22-year-old Beatrice Lawson, as she sent a whiskey bottle flying off the fence post at 200 yards. Every unmarried man within earshot felt his pride deflate a little more, watching her reload with practiced ease while ignoring their impressed whistles and half-hearted proposals. She had turned down 17 marriage proposals in the past year alone, and the town had begun to wonder if anyone would ever be good enough for the sharp-shooting beauty with auburn hair that caught fire in the sunlight. Beatrice wiped the sweat from her brow with the back of her hand and set her rifle down against the wooden fence. Her father's ranch stretched out behind her, 3,000 acres of good grazing land that bordered the White River. She had grown up working this land alongside him after her mother died, bringing her younger brother into the world, a brother who had only lived 3 days before following their mother to the grave. That had been 17 years ago, and in that time, Beatrice had become more capable than most men in town, able to break horses, mend fences, and run cattle with an efficiency that made her father proud and potential suitors intimidated. "That was some fine shooting, Miss Beatrice," called out Jimmy Patterson, the banker's son, who had been hanging around the fence for the better part of an hour. He was 24, well-dressed, and had a comfortable future guaranteed in his father's business. He was also boring as watching paint dry, and Beatrice had told him no 3 times already this month. "Thank you, Jimmy," she said without looking at him, gathering her shells and tucking them into her pocket. Her simple cotton dress was practical, nothing like the fancy frilled things the women in town wore when they went calling. She had no patience for such nonsense. "I was wondering if maybe you might reconsider my offer to take you to the church social next Saturday. There will be dancing, and my mother is making her famous apple pie." Beatrice finally turned to look at him, her green eyes direct and unwavering. "Jimmy, you are a fine man and you will make someone a good husband someday, but that someone is not me. I have told you this before and my answer has not changed. But why not? I can provide for you. You would never want for anything. Because you do not make my heart race, Jimmy. You do not make me feel alive. When I marry, it will be because I cannot imagine spending another day without that person, not because it makes practical sense." She picked up her rifle and started walking back toward the ranch house, leaving Jimmy standing there with his hat in his hands. Her father, William Lawson, was sitting on the porch whittling a piece of cedar when she climbed the steps. He was 53 years old with a weathered face that showed every year he had spent working under the Arkansas sun. His hair had gone completely gray after his wife died, but his blue eyes were still sharp and assessing. "You broke his heart again," William said, not looking up from his whittling. "He will recover. They always do." Beatrice sat down in the chair next to him and leaned her rifle against the porch railing. "Besides, he does not really love me. He loves the idea of me, or maybe he loves this ranch. But he does not know me well enough to love the real me. You are harder to please than any woman I have ever known. Mama always told me to wait for someone who made the stars shine brighter. I am just following her advice." William smiled softly at that, the first real smile to cross his face since they had started this conversation. "She did say that, did she not? Your mama was a romantic. She believed in true love and soulmates and all those things that most people think are just fairy tales." "Do you think they are fairy tales?" "No," William said firmly. "I know they are not because I lived it. When I met your mama, it was like the whole world came into focus for the first time. Everything before that moment seemed gray and dull. That is what I want for you, Beatrice. I want you to have what we had. Then you understand why I keep saying no." "I do." But the town does not, and people are starting to talk. They think you are too proud, too particular. Let them talk. I would rather be alone than be with the wrong person." That evening, as the sun set over the Ozark Mountains in the distance, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Beatrice sat on the edge of the water trough and let her feet dangle in the cool water. She could hear the cattle lowing in the distance and the sound of the ranch hands finishing up their work for the day. This was her favorite time, when the heat of the day had passed and everything was bathed in golden light. She thought about what her father had said about people talking. She knew her reputation in Eureka Springs had become something of a legend. The men saw her as a challenge, something to be conquered, and the women saw her as either foolish or superior, depending on their temperament. Neither perception bothered her much. She had learned early in life that other people's opinions were as changeable as the weather and about as important. What did bother her, though she would not admit it out loud, was the small seed of doubt that had started to grow in her heart. What if she was wrong? What if there was no great love waiting for her? What if she was holding out for something that did not exist outside of her mother's romantic stories and her own imagination? What if she ended up old and alone, her father gone, with nothing but this ranch and her memories? She pushed those thoughts away as she heard the sound of horses approaching. Her father was expecting a cattle buyer from Little Rock, a man interested in purchasing 50 head of their best steers. Beatrice dried her feet and pulled her boots back on, heading toward the front of the house to greet their visitor. But when she rounded the corner, she saw it was not the cattle buyer at all. Instead, 3 ranch hands from the neighboring property were dismounting, led by Marcus Thornton, the foreman of the Sinclair Ranch. Marcus was 30 years old, tall and broad-shouldered with dark hair and an ego to match his build. He had been pursuing Beatrice for 6 months, ever since he arrived in Arkansas from Texas. "Evening, Miss Beatrice," Marcus said, tipping his hat to her. His smile was confident, almost predatory, and it made her skin crawl. "Marcus, my father is around back if you are looking for him." "Actually, I came to see you." He stepped closer, and she resisted the urge to step back. She would not give him the satisfaction of knowing he made her uncomfortable. "There is a dance in town next week, and I would be honored if you would accompany me." "Thank you for the invitation, but I will not be attending." "Come now, you cannot avoid social gatherings forever. People will think you are odd. People can think whatever they like." "My answer is no, Marcus." His smile faded and something harder entered his eyes. "You know, Miss Beatrice, you are not getting any younger. A woman your age should be thinking about marriage and children, not playing at being a rancher." "Playing?" Beatrice felt her temper rise. "I was born on this land and I have worked it my entire life. I am not playing at anything." "A ranch is no place for a woman alone. You need a man to protect you, to take care of things." "I can take care of myself just fine, thank you. Now if you will excuse me, I have work to do." She tried to walk past him, but Marcus caught her arm. His grip was firm, just short of painful, and she felt a flash of real fear before her anger overrode it. "Let go of me," she said quietly, her voice deadly calm. "I am tired of playing games with you, Beatrice. You are going to run out of options eventually, and when you do, you are going to regret not accepting my offer when you had the chance." Before Beatrice could respond, her father's voice cut through the evening air like a whip crack. "Take your hand off my daughter, Thornton, or you will lose it." Marcus released her immediately and turned to see William Lawson standing 20 feet away with his shotgun leveled at Marcus's chest. The 2 ranch hands who had come with Marcus put their hands up slightly, showing they wanted no part of whatever was about to happen. "We were just talking, Mr. Lawson," Marcus said, his tone conciliatory now. "The conversation is over. Get off my land and do not come back unless you are invited, which you will not be." Marcus's jaw clenched, but he was not foolish enough to argue with a man holding a shotgun. He mounted his horse and looked down at Beatrice one last time. "You will regret this," he said, before spurring his horse and riding off with his men following. William waited until they were out of sight before lowering his gun. "Are you all right?" "I am fine, Papa. He is all talk." Men like that are dangerous, Beatrice. They do not like being told no, especially by a woman. I want you to stay close to the house for a while and carry your pistol with you. You are being overly cautious. Maybe. But your mama made me promise to keep you safe, and I intend to keep that promise, even if you think I am being a foolish old man. Beatrice hugged her father, something she did not do often enough. "You are not foolish, and I will be careful, I promise." 3 days later, on a warm evening when the air was thick with the smell of honeysuckle and the sound of crickets filled the darkness, Beatrice was finishing her evening chores when she heard something unusual. It was music, faint at first, carried on the breeze from somewhere beyond the barn. She stopped what she was doing and listened, trying to identify the source. It was a guitar, she realized, being played by someone who actually knew what they were doing. The melody was unfamiliar but beautiful, melancholic and sweet at the same time. She found herself drawn to the sound, walking away from the barn and toward the open field that lay between the ranch house and the road. As she got closer, she could see a figure sitting on a fallen log about 100 yards from the house, silhouetted against the starlit sky. It was a man, lean and relaxed, with a guitar resting comfortably in his lap. He had not seen her yet, too focused on the music he was creating. As she approached quietly, trying not to startle him, he began to sing. His voice was rich and warm, with a slight roughness that suggested hard living and long roads. The song was about leaving home, about wandering through life looking for something you could not name, about lonely nights under vast skies. The words were simple, but the emotion behind them was profound, and Beatrice felt something shift inside her chest as she listened. She must have made a sound, or perhaps he simply sensed her presence, because he stopped playing mid-verse and looked up. Even in the dim light, she could see that he was young, probably close to her own age, with shaggy dark hair that fell into his eyes and a lean, angular face. "I am sorry," he said, starting to stand. "I did not mean to trespass. I was just passing through and I saw this spot and thought it would be a good place to rest for the night. I will move along." "Wait," Beatrice said, surprising herself. "You do not have to go. That song, it was beautiful. I have never heard anything like it." The man relaxed slightly but remained cautious. "You are not angry that I am on your land. This field is not fenced and we do not mind travelers passing through as long as they mean no harm. Are you harmless?" She said it with a slight smile, trying to put him at ease. He smiled back and she felt that shift in her chest again, stronger this time. "I like to think so. My name is Thomas Carson, though most people call me Tom. Beatrice Lawson. People call me Beatrice, or Miss Beatrice if they are trying to be formal or want something from me." "And which would you prefer I call you? Just Beatrice is fine." Tom sat back down on the log and gestured to the space beside him. "Would you like to sit? I was going to play a few more songs before turning in for the night. I would be honored to have an audience." Beatrice knew she should go back to the house. It was improper to be out here alone with a strange man, especially after dark. If anyone saw them, her reputation would be in tatters. But she found herself sitting down beside him anyway, drawn by something she could not explain and did not want to examine too closely. "Where are you from, Tom?" "Originally. A little town in Missouri you have probably never heard of. But I have been drifting for about 3 years now, working ranches and farms, moving when the mood strikes me. not much tying me to any one place. That sounds lonely. Sometimes it is. Other times it feels like freedom. What about you? Have you always lived here? Born in that house right over there, Beatrice said, pointing toward the ranch house whose lights were visible in the distance. My father built it when he married my mother. I have never lived anywhere else. You ever want to? No one had ever asked her that before. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to see other places. But this land is in my blood. I cannot imagine truly leaving it. Tom nodded as if he understood, then began playing again. This time the song was lighter, more playful, about a girl with eyes like emeralds and a laugh like silver bells. Beatrice found herself blushing, wondering if he was singing about her, then told herself not to be ridiculous. He had just met her. They sat together for over an hour, Tom playing song after song while Beatrice listened. He told her about places he had been, things he had seen. He had worked cattle drives in Texas, harvested wheat in Kansas, even spent a winter in the mountains of Colorado working at a silver mine. His stories painted pictures of a world so much bigger than Eureka Springs, and Beatrice drank in every word. Finally, reluctantly, she stood up. I should get back. My father will worry if I am gone too long. Tom stood as well. Thank you for listening. It is rare to find someone who truly appreciates music. Will you still be here tomorrow? I was planning to move on in the morning. I heard there might be work on a ranch near Mountain Home. Beatrice felt disappointment settle in her stomach. Oh, well, safe travels then. Wait, Tom said as she started to walk away. Would it be all right if I came back this way, maybe stopped by again in a few weeks? She turned back to face him, her heart beating faster. I would like that. Then I will see you again, Beatrice. She walked back to the house feeling lighter than she had in months, maybe years. The stars seemed brighter overhead and the night air felt charged with possibility. When she reached the porch, her father was waiting. Where have you been? Just walking. There is a traveler camped in the far field. He was playing guitar and I stopped to listen. William's expression grew concerned. You were alone with a strange man in the dark. Beatrice, that is dangerous and foolish. He is harmless, Papa, just a drifter passing through. That is what they all say right before they rob you or worse. I want you to stay away from him. He is leaving in the morning anyway. But Beatrice could not get Tom out of her mind. That night she lay awake in her bed, staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment of their conversation, every note of his songs. She had never felt this way before, this strange combination of excitement and nervousness and longing. Was this what her mother had meant about the stars shining brighter? The next morning she rose early and rode out to the field, but Tom was already gone. The grass where he had sat was pressed down and there were the remains of a small campfire, but no other sign he had been there. She felt foolish for hoping he might have waited to say goodbye. The following days passed slowly. Beatrice threw herself into work, helping with the cattle, mending fences, doing the account books for her father. But her mind kept wandering back to that night, to Tom's voice and the way his fingers moved over the guitar strings, and the easy way he had talked to her, as if she was just a person and not a prize to be won or a challenge to be overcome. 2 more men proposed to her that week. She turned them both down without even really hearing their offers. Marcus Thornton rode past the property line 3 times, always watching the house, but he did not cross onto their land again. The cattle buyer from Little Rock finally arrived and her father negotiated a good price for the steers. Life in Eureka Springs continued as it always had, but Beatrice felt changed in ways she could not articulate. 3 weeks after Tom left, Beatrice was in town picking up supplies when she overheard 2 women talking outside the general store. Did you hear about Eliza Peterson? She ran off with that no-good drifter who was working at her father's mill. Just left a note and disappeared in the middle of the night. Her poor parents must be devastated. You cannot trust these wandering men. They are nothing but trouble, breaking hearts and leaving chaos in their wake. Beatrice felt her cheeks burn as she realized they were probably talking about men like Tom. Was she being foolish? Was she building up a fantasy in her mind based on one evening of music and conversation? Maybe her father was right to be concerned. But when she returned home that afternoon and saw a familiar figure sitting on the porch talking to her father, her heart leaped in a way that told her this was not just fantasy. Tom stood when he saw her wagon approaching. He was wearing the same worn pants and shirt she remembered, his guitar strapped to his back. Her father's expression was unreadable. "Miss Beatrice," Tom said, removing his hat. "I hope you do not mind me stopping by. I told your father I met you a few weeks ago and wanted to pay my respects before moving on." She climbed down from the wagon, very aware of both men watching her. "Of course I do not mind. It is good to see you again." William cleared his throat. "Mr. Carson here says he is looking for work. I told him we could use an extra hand for a few weeks. We are getting ready to drive some cattle to market and could use the help." Beatrice looked at her father in surprise. After his reaction the first time, she had expected him to send Tom away immediately. "That is, if he is willing to work for fair wages and follow the rules of this ranch," William continued, his eyes on Tom. "I am a hard worker, sir. You will not regret giving me a chance." "We will see about that. Beatrice, show Mr. Carson to the bunkhouse and introduce him to the other hands. He starts tomorrow morning dawn." As Beatrice led Tom toward the bunkhouse, she could feel the questions burning inside her, but she waited until they were out of earshot of the house. "You came back," she finally said. "I told you I would. I could not stop thinking about that night about you. I know it is probably foolish, but I had to see you again." "I could not stop thinking about it either." They stopped walking and looked at each other. Beatrice could see the other ranch hands watching from various positions around the property, no doubt curious about the new hire. She knew she should maintain proper distance, should be professional and cool, but she found herself smiling instead. "I am glad you came back, Tom. So am I." The next few weeks were the happiest Beatrice could remember in a long time. Tom proved to be an excellent ranch hand, hard-working and skilled with both horses and cattle. He fit in well with the other men, though he remained somewhat apart from them, spending his evenings playing guitar under the stars rather than drinking and playing cards in the bunkhouse. And every evening when her chores were done, Beatrice would find her way to wherever Tom was playing. Sometimes they talked for hours, sharing stories and dreams and fears. Other times they simply sat in comfortable silence while he played and she listened. She learned that he had lost his parents to cholera when he was 16, that he had a sister somewhere in Ohio he had not seen in 5 years, that he had been drifting because he did not know what else to do with himself. "I was looking for something," he told her one night when the stars were particularly bright. "I did not know what it was, just that I would know it when I found it. Does that sound crazy?" "No," Beatrice said softly. "It sounds exactly right." Their hands were almost touching where they sat on the split-rail fence. All Tom had to do was move his fingers an inch, and they would be holding hands. Beatrice wanted him to do it so badly she could hardly breathe, but she also appreciated that he was being respectful, not pushing too fast. "I think I have found it," Tom continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "Here in this place with you." "Tom," Beatrice breathed, and then his fingers were laced through hers, and everything felt right in a way nothing ever had before. They kept their growing feelings quiet for a while, knowing that the town would talk, and that her father, despite hiring Tom, might not approve of a romance between his daughter and a drifting cowboy with no property or prospects. But it was impossible to hide the way they looked at each other, the way they sought each other out whenever possible. The other ranch hands noticed first. Old Joe, who had worked for William Lawson for 15 years, pulled Beatrice aside one morning while she was feeding the chickens. "That Carson boy is sweet on you," he said bluntly. "And you are sweet on him too, unless I miss my guess. Is it that obvious? Only to anyone with eyes. Does your father know?" "I do not know. We have not talked about it." Joe was quiet for a moment, scattering feed for the chickens. "He is a good worker and he seems like a decent fellow. But he is also a drifter, Beatrice. Men like that have trouble staying in one place. You need to be careful with your heart." "I know what he is, Joe, and I know the risks, but I have never felt this way before." "I figured as much. Just wanted to make sure you were thinking clearly, not just feeling." But thinking clearly was becoming increasingly difficult. Beatrice found herself distracted constantly, watching Tom work from the window, counting the hours until evening when they could be together. She turned down 3 more marriage proposals that month, barely even registering who was asking. The problem came, as problems so often do, from an unexpected direction. Marcus Thornton had been watching the ranch more closely than anyone realized. He had seen Tom arrive and had made inquiries in town about who he was and where he came from. And one evening when he was drinking at the saloon in town, he started talking. "That drifter working at the Lawson place," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I heard he left 3 pregnant women behind in Texas. Just used them and left them ruined. And now he has his sights set on Miss Beatrice." The story was a lie, but it spread through town faster than a wildfire in dry grass. By the next morning, half of Eureka Springs believed that Tom Carson was a no-good scoundrel who had come to take advantage of the Lawson family. Several concerned citizens rode out to the ranch to warn William about the snake he had taken into his nest. William confronted Tom that afternoon while the other hands were out moving cattle. Beatrice was in the barn and heard raised voices, so she came running. "I want the truth," William was saying, his face red with anger. "Did you leave women ruined in Texas?" "No, sir, I did not. I have never made promises I could not keep, and I have never taken advantage of a woman. Whatever you heard is a lie." "Why would someone lie about that?" "Probably because they want me gone," Tom said, his voice steady despite the situation. "I am not blind, Mr. Lawson. I know there are men in town who want to court your daughter. Maybe one of them sees me as competition." "Is that what you are doing, courting my daughter?" Tom looked past William and saw Beatrice standing there. His eyes met hers and she could see the love and fear in them, fear that he was about to lose everything he had found. "Yes, sir, I am. Or I was hoping to, with your permission." "You have nothing to offer her. No land, no money, no prospects beyond the next job." "That is all true. But I love her, Mr. Lawson. I love her more than I thought it was possible to love another person, and I think she loves me too." William turned and saw Beatrice. "Is that true? Do you love this drifter?" Beatrice stepped forward, her chin held high. "Yes, Papa, I do. I love him." "He will leave you. Men like that always do." "No," Tom said firmly. "I will not. I have been running my whole life looking for a place to belong. I have found it here with Beatrice. If she will have me, I will spend the rest of my life proving that I am worthy of her." William looked between them, his expression torn. "I need to think about this. Tom, you are not fired, but I want you to keep your distance from my daughter until I decide what to do. Is that understood?" "Yes, sir." The next week was torture. Tom kept to the bunkhouse and the far pastures while Beatrice moped around the house, barely eating and sleeping even less. William watched his daughter grow paler and sadder with each passing day, and he thought about his wife. about the promise he had made to keep Beatrice safe and happy. He rode into town and made inquiries of his own about Tom Carson. He sent telegrams to sheriffs in Missouri and Texas, asking if there were any warrants or complaints against a man by that name. Every response came back negative. Tom Carson had no criminal record, no abandoned women, no debts or troubles following him. He was exactly what he appeared to be, a young man who had been drifting and was now trying to settle down. William also paid a visit to Marcus Thornton. The confrontation was brief and unpleasant, ending with William making it clear that if Marcus spread any more lies about Tom or came near his daughter again, there would be serious consequences. Finally, 8 days after the confrontation, William called Tom and Beatrice to the porch after dinner. Both of them looked miserable, and William felt a pang of guilt for keeping them apart. "I have thought about this situation from every angle," William said. "I have checked your story and found it to be true. I have watched you work and seen that you are honest and capable. And I have watched my daughter suffer from being separated from you, which tells me more than any investigation ever could." Tom and Beatrice exchanged hopeful glances, but stayed quiet, waiting for William to continue. "Tom, if you are serious about wanting to court my daughter, then I will not stand in your way, but I expect you to do things properly. You will court her like a gentleman with respect and propriety, and if you intend to marry her, you will ask for my blessing first. Is that clear?" "Yes, sir," Tom said, his face breaking into a huge smile. "Thank you, sir. You will not regret this." "I better not. Beatrice, you have 5 minutes alone with him, then I expect you in the house." William went inside, leaving them alone on the porch. Tom immediately took Beatrice's hands in his. "I was afraid I had lost you," he said. "Never. I would have waited however long it took. Your father is right that I have nothing to offer you, but I promise you, Beatrice, I will work every day of my life to build something worthy of you. I will save every penny, and someday I will buy us land of our own. I do not need land or money, Tom. I just need you." He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. "Can I kiss you? I wish you would." The kiss was sweet and gentle and perfect, everything Beatrice had imagined and more. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathless and grinning like fools. "I love you, Beatrice Lawson. I love you too, Thomas Carson." The next few months were like living in a dream. Tom continued working at the ranch, but now he could court Beatrice openly. They went to church socials together, took walks along the river, and spent long evenings on the porch talking about their future. The town gossips had plenty to say about it, of course, but Beatrice did not care. She had spent so long rejecting suitors who did not move her heart, and now she had found the one who did. Tom proved himself to be everything he had promised. He worked harder than any hand William had ever employed, and slowly he began to save money with the dream of one day buying property. William, seeing how happy his daughter was and how devoted Tom was to her, started teaching him the business side of ranching, showing him the account books and how to negotiate prices at market. 6 months after that first night when Tom had sung under the stars, he asked William for permission to marry Beatrice. William gave his blessing, and Tom proposed to her on the same log where they had first met, under the same vast Arkansas sky filled with stars. "I have been saving this," Tom said, pulling out a simple gold band. "It was my mother's. It is not fancy, but it is all I have to offer you right now." "It is perfect," Beatrice said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, Tom, yes, I will marry you." They were married in the small church in Eureka Springs on a beautiful spring day in 1878. Beatrice wore a simple white dress that had been her mother's, and Tom wore new clothes that William had bought him as a wedding gift. The church was packed with townspeople, many of whom had bet against this marriage ever happening. Marcus Thornton was notably absent, having left Arkansas for parts unknown after his lies had been exposed. The wedding ceremony was simple but heartfelt. When the preacher told Tom he could kiss his bride, he did so with a tenderness that made several women in the congregation wipe away tears. This was true love, the kind that poets wrote about and most people only dreamed of finding. William had a surprise for them at the reception. He had drawn up papers that gave Tom a partnership in the ranch, making him a full owner of 20% of the property. "You have proven yourself to be a good man and a hard worker," William told Tom in front of all the guests. "And more importantly, you have made my daughter happier than I have ever seen her. This ranch will be yours and hers someday. I am just making it official now." Tom was speechless, overwhelmed by the generosity and acceptance. Beatrice hugged her father tight, thanking him through happy tears. They spent their wedding night in a small cottage on the property that had been fixed up as a wedding present from the ranch hands. It was modest but clean, with a real bed and curtains in the windows and wildflowers in vases on every surface. "I cannot believe this is real," Beatrice whispered as Tom carried her across the threshold. "Sometimes I am afraid I will wake up and find out it was all a dream." "It is real," Tom assured her, setting her gently on her feet. "You are my wife, and I am your husband, and we have the rest of our lives together." That night, they became truly husband and wife, coming together with love and passion and tenderness. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the moonlight streaming through the window, talking quietly about their dreams for the future. "I want to build us a bigger house," Tom said, stroking her hair. "With a porch that wraps all the way around and big windows so you can see the mountains in the distance. And I want to fill it with children and laughter and music." "That sounds perfect. How many children?" "As many as the good Lord blesses us with. What about you? What do you want?" "I want to keep working the ranch with you and my father. I want to grow old watching the sunsets from that porch you will build. And I want to hear you sing every night for the rest of my life." That is an easy promise to keep. The first year of marriage was not without its challenges. There were hard times when the cattle prices dropped, and they worried about making ends meet. There were disagreements, as any couple has, about money and priorities and how to run the ranch. But through it all, their love remained constant and strong. Beatrice discovered she was pregnant in the winter of 1878, just 8 months after their wedding. Tom was overjoyed, immediately becoming overprotective and worried about every little thing. Beatrice tolerated his fussing with good humor, though she continued working almost until the day their son was born. Timothy Carson came into the world on a hot July afternoon in 1879, screaming with healthy lungs and a full head of dark hair like his father. Tom held his son for the first time with tears streaming down his face, overcome with love and responsibility and gratitude. "He is perfect," Tom whispered. "Absolutely perfect." William was equally smitten with his grandson, spending hours with the baby and telling him stories about his grandmother. The ranch prospered under the partnership of William and Tom, and they bought an additional 1,000 acres of land that bordered their property. 2 years later, Beatrice gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah after Tom's mother. She had her mother's auburn hair and her father's warm brown eyes. Tom built the house he had promised, with the wraparound porch and big windows, and they moved in when Sarah was 6 months old. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The children grew healthy and strong, helping with small chores as soon as they were old enough. Tom never lost his love of music, and evening concerts on the porch became a family tradition. He taught both Timothy and Sarah to play guitar, and Beatrice learned too, so that sometimes all four of them would play together while William sat in his rocking chair and smiled. The town of Eureka Springs grew and changed over the years. More families moved in, new businesses opened, and the railroad finally came through in 1883, making it easier to get cattle to market. The Lawson Carson Ranch became one of the most successful in the region, known for quality cattle and fair dealing. Marcus Thornton's name occasionally came up, usually in the context of cautionary tales about prideful men who could not accept rejection. The men that Beatrice had rejected over the years mostly married other women and moved on with their lives. A few remained bitter, but most came to understand that matters of the heart could not be forced. William Lawson lived to see his grandchildren grow into capable young adults. He died peacefully in his sleep in 1891 at the age of 67, surrounded by family who loved him. At his funeral, Tom spoke about how William had given him a chance when others would not, how he had trusted him with his daughter and his legacy, and how he had become the father Tom had lost so many years before. The ranch passed fully to Tom and Beatrice, and they continued to run it with the same care and dedication that William had shown. Timothy showed a natural aptitude for ranching and took over more responsibilities as he got older. Sarah inherited her mother's eye for shooting and her father's love of music, becoming a local celebrity when she won the shooting competition at the county fair 3 years running. More children came, blessing the household with noise and chaos and love. Another son, William, named after Beatrice's father. Twin girls, Mary and Elizabeth, who were inseparable from birth. Each child was taught the value of hard work, the importance of integrity, and the power of love. Tom never stopped being grateful for the life he had found. Sometimes, when he could not sleep, he would go out to that old log where he had first played his guitar all those years ago. He would sit there and remember that night when a beautiful woman had emerged from the darkness to listen to his music, and how his life had changed forever because of it. Beatrice would often join him on those nights, sitting beside him just as she had done that first time. They would hold hands and look at the stars and marvel at how one evening, one song had led to all of this. You ever regret it? Tom asked her one night when they were both in their 40s, their hair showing threads of gray. Marrying a drifter with nothing to his name. Not for a single moment, Beatrice replied. You gave me everything I ever wanted. You made my heart race then, and you still do now. I love you, Beatrice Carson. I love you too, Tom, more today than yesterday and less than I will tomorrow. As the years passed and their children grew and married and had children of their own, Tom and Beatrice remained the center of a large, loving family. The ranch continued to thrive, eventually expanding to over 10,000 acres and employing dozens of hands. The modest cattle operation that William had started became a true dynasty, passed down through generations. Timothy married a sweet girl from town and had 4 children of his own. Sarah married a veterinarian from Little Rock and brought him back to Eureka Springs, where he opened a practice that served all the ranches in the region. William became a horse trainer of some renown, traveling throughout Arkansas and Missouri to work with difficult animals. The twins both became teachers, educating the children of Eureka Springs and surrounding communities. Tom and Beatrice watched it all with pride and satisfaction, knowing that they had built something lasting. But more important than the land or the money or the legacy was the love that bound their family together. A love that had started with a song under the stars and grown stronger with each passing year. On their 30th wedding anniversary in 1908, their children and grandchildren gathered for a massive celebration. There was food and music and dancing, with people coming from all over the state to honor the couple. Tom, now 53 years old but still lean and strong from years of ranch work, took out his guitar as the sun set. 30 years ago, he said to the assembled crowd, I was a drifter with nothing but a guitar and a restless heart. I stopped on this property to rest for a night and ended up finding the reason for every step I had taken in my life. This song is for my wife, the woman who saw something in me worth keeping, who gave me a home and a family and a purpose. He began to play the same song he had been playing that first night, the melancholic melody about wandering and searching. But this time, when he got to the chorus, he changed the words. I was lost, but now I am found. I was empty, but now I am full. Every road was leading me here, to this place, to this life, to you. Beatrice, sitting beside him with tears streaming down her face, joined in on the second verse. Their children picked up the harmony, then their grandchildren, until everyone was singing together under the Arkansas sky. When the song ended, Tom set down his guitar and took Beatrice's hand. Dance with me, my love. I thought you would never ask. They danced while their family watched, still as in love as they had been when Tom first kissed her on the porch all those years ago. The younger people watching wondered if they would ever find something like that rare and precious connection that time could not diminish. As the party wound down and people started heading home, Beatrice and Tom found themselves alone on the porch of the house he had built for her. The same stars that had watched their first meeting shone overhead, constant and eternal. You remember what you said to me that first night? Beatrice asked. About looking for something but not knowing what it was. I do. And I remember you saying that you were waiting for someone who made the stars shine brighter. Did I do that for you? Make the stars brighter? Tom pulled her close and kissed her forehead. Every single day. You are my star, Beatrice. You are the light that guided me home. They stood there together as the night deepened. Two people who had defied expectations and overcome obstacles to build a life of love and meaning. The town had thought Beatrice was too particular, too proud, impossible to please. But she had simply known what she was waiting for, and she had been brave enough to wait until it arrived. And Tom, the drifting cowboy with no roots and no direction, had found his purpose in loving her. He had proven that a man's worth was not measured by what he owned when you met him, but by what he was willing to build and who he chose to become. The years continued to pass. Tom and Beatrice grew old together, their bodies slowing but their hearts remaining young. They saw their grandchildren grow and marry and have children of their own. The ranch evolved with the times, adapting to new technologies and methods while maintaining the core values that William Lawson had established. When Tom was 72 years old, he suffered a fall while working with a young horse. The injuries were not immediately life-threatening, but they left him weakened and confined mostly to the house. Beatrice, now 70, cared for him with the same devotion he had always shown her. She read to him, played the guitar beside his bed, and held his hand through long afternoons. I am sorry, Tom said one day when he was feeling particularly low. I always thought I would go first quickly, so you would not have to take care of an invalid. Hush, Beatrice said firmly. You have taken care of me every day of our marriage. Let me do the same for you now. Besides, you are not an invalid. You are healing. But they both knew he was not healing, not really. The fall had done something to him internally, something the doctors could not fix. Tom grew weaker as autumn turned to winter, and by December he was bedridden most days. On Christmas morning, with all their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren gathered around, Tom asked for his guitar. His hands were shaky, but he managed to play a few chords of that first song, the one that had brought Beatrice to him so many years ago. I have had a good life, he told his family, his voice weak but clear. Better than I ever deserved or imagined. And it is all because of your mother, your grandmother. She took a chance on a nobody drifter and made him into somebody. Love her and take care of her for me. He died 3 days later, peacefully in his sleep with Beatrice holding his hand. The whole town turned out for his funeral. People came from 3 states to pay their respects to the man who had started with nothing and built an empire, but more importantly, had loved truly and deeply. Beatrice mourned him, but she did not break. She continued running the ranch with Timothy's help, still sharp and capable even in her grief. She lived for another 8 years, long enough to see several more great-grandchildren born and to know that the legacy she and Tom had built would continue. On a warm summer evening in 1916, Beatrice asked her family to take her out to the old log where she and Tom had first met. It was still there, weathered and worn but solid. They helped her sit down and then gave her privacy, understanding without being told that she needed these moments alone. Beatrice looked up at the stars, the same stars that had witnessed the beginning of her love story. She could almost hear Tom's guitar, that melancholic melody that had drawn her out into the darkness all those years ago. She could feel his presence beside her, as real as it had ever been. "I am ready," she whispered to the night air. "I have lived a full and beautiful life, but I am ready to be with you again." She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, and when her grandchildren came to check on her an hour later, they found her with a peaceful smile on her face, her hand stretched out as if holding someone else's hand. She had passed quietly, leaving behind a family that would remember her and Tom's love story for generations to come. They buried her next to Tom on a hill overlooking the ranch, under a large oak tree they had planted together on their 10th anniversary. The headstones were simple, just their names and dates and a single line that summed up their life together. Thomas and Beatrice Carson. They found each other under the stars. The ranch continued under Timothy's stewardship and eventually passed to his children and their children after him. The house that Tom built still stands, renovated and modernized but maintaining its essential character. The porch where they had their first kiss, where they had danced at their anniversary party, where they had watched countless sunsets together, remained a gathering place for the family. And sometimes, on clear summer nights when the stars are particularly bright, people swear they can hear the faint sound of a guitar playing, a melancholic melody about wandering and searching and finding home. The younger generations dismiss it as imagination or the wind in the trees. But the older ones, who remember the stories passed down from their grandparents, know better. It is Tom, still playing for Beatrice, still keeping the promise he made to sing for her every night for the rest of his life. And beyond. Because true love, the kind that makes the stars shine brighter, does not end with death. It echoes through time, touching everyone it comes near, inspiring them to be brave enough to wait for the right person and wise enough to recognize them when they arrive. It reminds us that sometimes the best things in life come from unexpected places, from drifting cowboys and strong-willed women who refuse to settle for anything less than a love that makes their hearts race. Beatrice had rejected every suitor in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, waiting for someone who could move her soul. And then one night in 1877, a drifting cowboy sang her a song under the stars, and everything changed. They built a life together, a family, a legacy that lasted long after they were gone. They proved that love, real love, was worth waiting for and worth fighting for. And in the end, that is the greatest legacy of all. Not the land or the money or even the children and grandchildren, but the example they set of what love could be when two people truly chose each other, every single day, through good times and bad, through youth and age, through life and beyond. Their story became legend in Eureka Springs, told and retold until it took on the quality of myth. Young women would cite Beatrice's example when explaining to disappointed suitors why they were saying no, insisting that they would wait for their own drifting cowboy with a guitar. Young men would try to emulate Tom's devotion and hard work, hoping to prove themselves worthy of strong-hearted women. The log where they first met eventually rotted away, but the family replaced it with a stone marker engraved with musical notes and the first line of Tom's wandering song. It became a pilgrimage site of sorts for romantics and dreamers, a place to make wishes and promises under the same stars that had blessed Tom and Beatrice's union. The Lawson-Carson Ranch thrived well into the 20th century, adapting to changing times while maintaining the values its founders had established. Timothy's son, another Thomas, took over in the 1930s during the Great Depression and managed to keep the ranch solvent when many others failed. He attributed his success to the lessons his grandparents had taught: work hard, treat people fairly, and never give up on what matters. The family maintained the tradition of evening concerts on the porch, with each generation learning to play guitar and sing the old songs. Tom's original guitar was preserved carefully and brought out only on special occasions, but copies were made and played frequently, keeping his music alive. As the decades passed and the world changed dramatically, becoming faster and more complex, the story of Tom and Beatrice remained constant, a reminder of simpler times and eternal truths. In a world increasingly focused on instant gratification and easy answers, their tale spoke to the value of patience and the power of waiting for the right person rather than settling for the convenient one. Their descendants spread across the country and eventually the world, but many returned regularly to Eureka Springs, to the ranch, to the hill where Tom and Beatrice were buried. They came to remember, to connect with their roots, and to honor the love story that had made their family possible. And on clear nights when the stars are bright and the wind carries the scent of honeysuckle, if you stand very still in the fields of the Lawson-Carson Ranch and listen carefully, you might just hear it: the faint, sweet sound of a guitar playing a melancholic melody about wandering and searching and finally, beautifully, finding home. It is the echo of a love that changed everything, a reminder that sometimes the greatest adventures start with a simple song under the stars.